Florida gardeners, I do these things every year, and it really helps me grow a lot of carrots. After failing miserably at growing carrots for a few years, I've learned a few tips and tricks that have really helped me that I want to share with you today. You probably got some questions rolling around in your head like, when do I plant? What are the best varieties? Do I direct sow? Do I transplant? Fertilizer? Do they like that? What kind? So let's go ahead and jump right in. Let's super simplify this. Let's start by talking about timing. We have a lot of snowbirds here in Florida. So if you're from out of state and you're coming to Florida and just learning to garden here, it's really different, especially with timing. So if you're trying to plant your carrots in the summer, like you do everywhere else here in Florida, you are not going to have a good time. So carrots are a cooler season crop for us here in Florida. This means our stretches of fall and winter. More specifically, in North Florida, you're going to plant carrots between the months of September and March. In Central Florida, you're going to plant between October and March. And in South Florida, you're going to plant between October and February. Carrots germinate best when the temperatures are between 60 and 85 degrees. So plant at the right time, set yourself up for success. Don't make it more difficult than it needs to be, like I tend to do all the time. Okay, so now we got timing, pretty simple. Let's move on to varieties. What are the best varieties to grow in Florida? So let's start by breaking down the carrots into the 4 major types of carrots that there are. Let's start with the classic, the Danvers and the Imperators, Nantes, and the Chantilly. Say them however you want to say them. Google them. You'll find them. Let's start by talking about the Nantes, because these are some of my favorite types of carrots to grow in Florida. They are a relatively fast-maturing carrot, usually around 60 days for Nantes type carrots, which makes them an ideal choice for Florida since we do only have kind of a relatively small window of mild weather to grow carrots in. Chantilly type carrots are another great option for Florida because they grow fantastic in very poor soils, which we have a lot of that here in Florida. So when we're comparing those two and we're talking about how they look, Nantes type carrots are a little bit more cylindrical. They have a little bit more of a blunt end. They're not very pointy, where the Chantilly carrots are a little bit stockier, a little bit thicker, a little bit more pointy. And then the other two, the Danvers and the Imperators, those are like your classic type of carrots, kind of long, really pointy at the end. Think of like Bugs Bunny chewing on a little carrot. That's probably a Danver. Some of my favorite carrots to grow in Florida, as well as other Florida gardeners, are Scarlet Nantes, Red Core Chantilly, and the Carrata. Carrata is one that is particularly interesting to me. It's a Chantilly type carrot that originated out of Japan. It's built to handle tough soil and extreme heat. And we oftentimes have both of those here in Florida. Trash day today. If you're looking for some Florida-friendly seed varieties, I'll put a link in the description to a few that I really like. Okay, now that we know timing, some of the best varieties, let's talk about getting these puppies to germinate. And quite honestly, this is where I have failed most often. Carrot seeds are really tiny, so you don't want to bury them very deep. But also, they need to stay moist at all times to get them to really germinate. So this is a trick that's probably helped me the most increase my yield of carrots. A lot of people I notice, they dig really shallow trenches, sprinkle in their carrot seeds, and then bury them with just a little bit of soil. That works for some people, but for whatever reason, it never worked for me. I would get very poor germination rates. So instead, what I've done, and it's really increased my germination, is instead of digging a little trench, I literally just sprinkle the seeds on the surface of the soil, and then I cover them with a piece of wood. I've used a 2x4, and I've gotten really good results with it. Some gardeners use cardboard. Other gardeners use newspaper. And actually, on our Instagram, I did a test last year. I tested all 3. And the 2x4 by far got the best results. So don't be afraid to cover them up. They're going to germinate. All you have to do, sprinkle your seeds in, water them in really well, cover them with a piece of 2x4, check them in 5 to 7 days. If you see any sprouts, go ahead and remove that 2x4. The leaves are going to be a little bit pale, a little bit yellow, but give them some sunlight and they're going to green up really nice for you. I guarantee if you're not doing this, you're going to see improved results with your carrot. Okay, so timing, varieties, germination, soil. What about soil? So in Florida, our soil is really sandy, and that's actually a great texture for carrots. It's loose. It lets the root really expand and dive deep easily into the soil. So you want a nice, loose, kind of fluffy texture for carrots when growing them. If your soil is really compact, your carrots are going to be really short, kind of stubby. If you've got a lot of debris in your soil, say a lot of unbroken down mulch or rocks or something like that, your carrots are going to grow around those things. They're going to be kind of funny shaped, but they'll still taste pretty good. So if you're growing in a raised bed, I definitely recommend having a really loose mix, something that's based off of like peat moss or coco coir. It will do really, really well for carrots. But if you're growing directly into the ground, keep in mind, again, the soil texture is good here in Florida typically if it's very sandy, but it's not very nutrient dense. Carrots do need some food to grow, so what I found is the best fertilizer for carrots is something that is high in phosphorus but has a little bit of nitrogen. The main reason for growing carrots is their roots. You can definitely eat the greens as well, but what we're looking for is a nice, thick, chunky root. We want a big, meaty carrot. And phosphorus, which is the second number on the NPK value on the fertilizer bags, is really what promotes big, healthy root growth. So the best fertilizer that I found for carrots is actually bone meal. It's an organic fertilizer. It's high in phosphorus, and it has a little bit of nitrogen. It's almost like bone meal was built for growing carrots. You can find that almost anywhere, local box store, your local nursery probably. Something else that's really important to growing a lot of big carrots is actually thinning your seedlings. Carrots need room to grow. You could take the time and individually plant seeds where you want them to grow, but that takes a lot of time. It's way easier to kind of take, as I call it, the shotgun approach. Sprinkle a bunch of carrot seeds into your garden and then thin them multiple times throughout the season, giving them more and more room to grow. So let some carrots sprout. They're going to be overcrowded. Take your little scissors, thin them out, let them grow a little bit more. It gets a little bit easier to thin at this point, thin out a little bit more. Thinning day is a difficult day for me. It's always sad to kill these little plants, but it's definitely a necessary one. What about pests? Do carrots have a lot of pests here in Florida? Surprisingly, I have not felt much pest pressure here when growing carrots. I was doing some research to see if maybe I'm just lucky, but there's a paper that was written quite a few years ago by commercial growers here in Florida that kind of shared the same thing, that carrots are a relatively pest-free plant here in Florida. They found that if you're going to see some pests, it's probably going to be the wireworm, which grows in the soil, and it will eat your carrots before you do. Which, by the way, did you know, like in the years 96, 97, that Florida ranked in the top carrot growing states in the country? We exported like $25 million worth of carrots. Who knew? Again, we haven't really seen a lot of pest pressure with our carrots, but that doesn't mean that you won't. Gardening in Florida can be tough. We have really hot summers, sometimes a lot of rain, really poor soils, and really intense heat. If you're just starting to garden here in Florida, you haven't had time to build your soil, I highly recommend growing in a raised bed garden. I built a few of these hugelkultur style raised beds, and I did a video on how I built them. If you like the way these look and you like this video, check out this next one. It's really going to help you grow things here in Florida. Hope this helps you grow more food. Thanks.